Hello. I kind of wanna, kind of in the mood for a rant. Um, so, and this is personal observation. This is not something I have really spent a lot of time analyzing in others. But what I found is, generally, as people get older, um, well, maybe as kids as well, but it's not as, it doesn't have the same level of impact. So, when you're a child, generally, you have relatively low self-awareness. You don't care about all the um, social credit type of things. You don't care about being politically correct and virtue signaling or whatever. You're not playing those games. You're just being yourself. You get to, um, at least you try to just do whatever interests you. You don't have like the level of self-awareness or consciousness to worry about all the bullshit. And I think that's something very precious. I think being able to be, yeah, literally being able to be is very valuable. I think, but I think there are some trade-offs. Not trade-offs, there's some nuances. So there's the kind of two camps, like farm social credit, which is I need a car, a job, I need a respectable social endeavor, and I need to have this, this, and this, kind of the checklist of just social conformity. And then you also have the people like don't care, be free. I'll just call them stoners, right? The people that are kind of shitting on that, they don't give a fuck, right? You'll see why I'm gonna call them stoners in a bit. Um, People that provide these norms and are like argue that as long as you have fun, that's all that matters. Often very utilitarian people actually, very liberal in their views. I'm not talking about politics. I literally mean the word liberal, like very open-minded. Um, um, Actually, maybe they're more politically liberal than actually liberal. But fairly open-minded people generally. Um, just want to live very happy and very chill guys, you could say, right? And then you have the tryharders or whatever. And on paper, you would say, well, being a chill, like generally people pick one of these two camps and kind of stick there. And I think there are issues with both views or both camps. There's both have some downsides. So farm social credit is you're suppressing yourself to an extent where you're no longer an individual. You just went into a social conformity. You've become a slave to the system. Good job. Like there's no real merit in that. Um, you got so caught up in the game that you have become a pawn in the game. You've sacrificed your interests, your individuality to play the game, defeating the purpose of the game. Stoners. On paper, based on what I said, you would think that I would align with stoners. I would think they're based. No, because they ignore the game. That's why I call them stoners, because like, what is drug consumption? Drug consumption is an escape from reality. Um, so it's a way of ignoring the game. It's pretending as if it doesn't exist. It's like, no, it's not about social class. It's not about this. No, the game exists. It definitely does exist. Um, and stoners, by stoners, I mean like anyone who's finding any form of escape. It doesn't need to be drugs. It could be like your gooners. It could be your middle-aged women that do meditation. Uh, it could be your. You get the picture, you get the idea. I don't need to explain further, right? People that run away from the game, and the problem with that is the kind of ideas that they put forward is something like you can ignore all the rules and uh, avoid all the consequences. Uh, just don't think about it and it's not a problem. They dismiss the issues. And so, for example, let's say you are, which encourages weakness a lot of the time. So let's say you are someone who is, I don't know, you have some character trait that is uh, not doing you any favors. Let's say you're a doomer, you're constantly negative, you want to kill yourself, you're always crying or whatever, um, and you're generally a weak, uh, or not a weak, a fragile-minded person, right? Uh, sad person. Let's just say that, right? You're a super sad person. If you go to the farm social credit people, they're like, well, being sad is not effective. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Stop being stupid, right? You go to the stoners, and they're like, I accept you for who you are. You can be a sad person. I will embrace you as you are. And whereas like it doesn't matter that you're sad. At least you're expressive. At least like I want you to be sad. Like if being sad is you, keep being sad. And the issue with that is, okay, I think this is a bad example. Let's say you have a delusion that in your way of thinking. For example, uh, let's say you're trying to. I'm gonna give an abstract example just to avoid offending people, um, because they're gonna take it way too personally. Let's say you have, you're trying to go from point A to B, right? And the way you're trying to do it is not effective at all. You're going like some super retarded way. Um, okay, I'll give a coaching example, because I do CS coaching or whatever. Let's say you're trying to train your aim and you're trying to do so by playing 10 million matches per day. It's like that's a pretty round way of doing it. Maybe after, if you're lucky, you'll have really good aim, but generally, the amount you play has nothing got to do with your improvement. It's you need to do certain actions, you need to train in a certain way, you need to engage with things in a very specific way to get those specific results. For example, uh, how many times do you need to burp before you have 100k in your bank account? You can do it infinity number of times. You're not gonna get 1k in your bank account because those things are not related. So um, people often do unrelated things. They try to do things ineffective, inefficient ways, and they have those strategies. And the farm social credit people are, well, this is ineffective, this is stupid, you need to do it. Okay, I'll explain a little bit further in a bit. I'm focusing on stoners right now, but these guys will say this is stupid and you should not do things this way. Stoners will say, whatever, you can do whatever the fuck you want, and even if it's terribly ineffective, they won't even comment on it. They're like way too chill to even give you advice or to question you because they're not engaging with reality. Um, like the reality is you're not going to get a result by doing that ineffective action. Uh, and stoners will just be like, whatever, you do you, right? And the problem with that is it kind of allows people to feel comfortable within their delusions. It uh like reassurance from these stoners, reassurance from these people that are in no way attached to reality, uh makes you feel like you're not alone and makes you feel more comfortable or confident or whatever. But you're still fucking doing the most retarded strategy, and you're practically wasting your time. And in a way, that is kind of destructive because you are enabling or encouraging someone to do something that just doesn't work. It's like uh, this is something that people generally have conflicts with me a lot about. For example, someone will say something that doesn't work, and I'm like, I don't think that works, right? I don't go out of my way to fucking tell them, ah, you should do it this way. I just say, I don't think that works. And then everyone fucking dogpiles on me saying, ah, uh, you should be more accepting of people. You should, stop judging people. It's like, what do you mean? You're the one that's, reacting. Like, I said, I don't think that works. That's up to you what you do with that information. Like, the reason why they get so aggressive is because they hate any confrontation with reality. When someone tells them that their strategy is not working, that's me bringing reality back. And if they're stoners and they hate reality, they're trying to escape it as much as possible. Any contact with someone like me is going to be painful, and uh, or with someone that reminds them of the reality is going to be painful. Uh, so what I find with stoners is they're often delusion maxing, and I think that's destructive. That is too liberal or whatever. Uh, Social credit people are destructive in the opposite direction. They are too set in their ways and they don't allow any freedom of expression in how you are to do so. For example, oh, you want to be rich, but you don't want to work an office job. You want to do, I don't know, you want to be a painter or some shit. Social credit people would be like, ah, that's stupid. You should be an engineer, be a doctor. Chinese parents, right? Those are exact, really strong example of farm social credit people. And they're going to be too set in doing things the socially acceptable way, which will mean that there is one objective correct way to do everything, and you must follow that route, and that is anti-innovative. Um, those things, that way of thinking, prevents you from doing anything new, anything interesting. It also strips your activities of your individual input. Uh, it limits your self-expression. It limits the maybe the level you could have reached because all of us have our differences. We have certain unique attributes and or combination of attributes, and those allow us to. That means that different we're capable of different things, and there isn't the right way to do things. For example, if you try to force someone who's more prone to um, diffuse thinking, like scatterbrained, and is very creative because of that, and you try to force them into a field which requires high focus and low creative, something like I don't know, mathematics. I'm not talking about education mathematics. I'm talking about like deterministic mathematics, where you're just reapplying the same formulas over and over again, right? Not where you're theory crafting new shit. So if you put them into mathematics, they're gonna be they're fucked. Their unique attributes don't match up with the skill set that would be beneficial for this task. And trying to force that on them is going to only diminish their potential. Is going to break their potential. And with the stoners, it's like again, let's say we have this scatterbrained person and he's trying to do mathematics, and they're like, "Oh, you're if that's what you want to do, then you do it." and you're just encouraging them to do that. Kind of the same issue applies. What do I think is healthy? I think healthy is being attached. I really like stoners in the sense that they're liberal, like they're open-minded, but I think they should be more attached to reality. So something like instead of telling someone, "Oh, it's okay, do whatever you want," or "Oh no, you should 100% do this," and then present some random socially acceptable way or socially conventionally accepted way. Instead, you should, or what I think is better is you'd be like, "I don't think that works." Um, because of this, and then you point to some observation of our reality, and that person can then consider, like, I'm not telling them to just stop doing what they're doing, or as in, they can still follow the goal that they were trying to do. Maybe they can just find a more effective way of doing so. So it's like a constructive thing. For example, I don't know, let's say you're trying to learn how to run, and a coach tells you, um, the way you're moving your legs is like I don't know, it's causing you to go off balance, and that is making it harder for you to run quickly. If you were to tilt yourself more forward or something, then you would be more you would not have such an issue with balance, and you would be able to run better. Uh, like simple feedback with close accuracy in terms of with high accuracy in terms of how accurate it is to the world can be actually very positive, and it can allow you to do things much better and much stronger. That's kind of what the coach is there for. If the coach is going to tell you that, and you're like, I'm going to run how I want to run, um, okay, you're free to do that, but how should I say? Maybe they know what they're talking about, and maybe it's worth at least trying what they're offering to see if it is more effective. And then if you um, don't want to proceed with it, then yeah, you don't have to. Or maybe what they're suggesting to you is something that you've already considered, and for whatever reason you've decided you don't want to do it that way. Then yeah, that's completely valid. That's fine. You're in touch with reality. You have um, considered the reality, and maybe you find a more optimal strategy. And if you're holding on to your weaknesses and you're like, yeah, but the way I run is how I should run. It's like this kind of very everyone's beautiful how they are. The way everyone does everything is perfect. That is too soft. That is too um accepting of potentially destructive behavior. Okay. That was just foundation concept that I wanted to explain. The actual rant is I feel like as you get older, people tend to split up into these two categories, and it's very seldom that you will meet people that aren't one of those two. Either you have fucking fascists that are telling you exactly how to do everything, there's the right and wrong for everything, and then you have the stoners, which is everything is right. The stoners is like everything is equal, and then it's like no, there is a objectively superior way to everything, and it's kind of interesting because politically they align that way as well. Um, but whatever, I don't really care about politics that much. And the problem with being in a society where every single adult is generally going into one of these two is there is no healthy mode of engagement with any of these people. You just can't do your thing and stay in touch with reality without getting fucking dogpiled by any of them. Um, let's say you are, I don't know, let's say you're a runner and you're pioneering some innovative running technique. I don't know, let's say you come from some village in Nigeria and your muscles develop in a specific way where, I don't know, let's say you're running barefoot from a young age and that makes you run in a special way. You go to America to train and your coach is like, no, in America we run like this, but you have your own unique technique, right? He's trying to force his, what he thinks is the most conventional way of doing it, but you have your own technique developed. Um, and he's just not going to give up on that. He's always just going to think you're retarded. Um, it's like, so, if you are at all innovating and you're not just like a normie doing everything the normal way, like you're not an autopilot dweller, like you're actually having some input, or you're having some unique circumstances, you're doing something at all innovative or at all new, then you can't really coexist with these people. They will always get triggered by you doing things the wrong way. They're going to be like, "Oh, there he is, always doing things his way just to stand out. What a whatever, right?" And then if you do with the stoners, and then let's say another person from Nigeria has come to your country and you've been training for a few years, and then you see their running technique and you're like, um, you see something that they can do that could potentially boost their performance, and you're like, hey, if you were to move your arms in this way instead of this way, then you would see some improvement. And the kind of stoner's reaction will be like, no, just let him move his arms how he wants to. Meh, meh, meh. Like, all criticism is bad. Just let him be. It's like that is completely anti-performative, anti-performance mindset. It's like if you can't take criticism and actually evaluate whether it's valid or not and iterate, then you're not going to improve. It's like using that logic, then everyone's already perfect, then we should all just shut the fuck up. So if you have any kind of, if you're doing anything at all interesting or new, these guys get on your ass. And if you at all question or propose or point to um, certain realities to the other group, they also get triggered. And at that point, it's like you're basically not allowed to interact with either of the two, or they will just go apeshit. And they go apeshit in a completely irrational way because uh, it's almost never that they will actually be open to discussion. They will be uh, talking to you from the POV of they need to protect their way of life or validate their way of life, and to do that, they need to destroy whatever you're presenting. And the way they would do that is this group would go and say something like, society big, society strong, society no better than you. uh, I'm not even gonna elaborate. I think that's perfect framing of it. And then Stoners is like, let the man do his thing, bro. And it's like, you didn't even attack. Like, a lot of the time, you're not even, like, attacking them or forcing. Oh, actually, I think I know why these directions are so strong. Because these two ideas often clash, and generally, when, the more liberal people clash with the more social credit people, then they're always going to have this conflict of, do I suck up to whatever society wants me to do, or do I protect my individuality? But they both, because of that kind of defensive mechanism to protect their ideas, take extremes and extreme stubborn positions. So, for example, this would go, no matter what, society knows better, therefore you should never try things. And then this is like, well, um, society is lying to you or whatever, or you should just be yourself and you should never consider other things, or any form of confrontation of reality is inherently evil or whatever. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like I've had people basically completely tweak out over from either of these two groups over very simple like pretty objective ideas. And usually what happens is they basically go for this phase of like screaming and arguing and trying every single manipulation possible just to prove that they're right. They're not actually considering the intent that you had. And this kind of speaks to like low self-awareness in people. Um, Very low level of self-reflection, very low, like it's like I'm talking to a baby monkey. I don't know. Like how are you supposed to interact with people when that is their default response? Honestly, I don't think you can. Um, until our society kind of progresses. I don't know if it will, but whatever. So my rant was, as you get older, it becomes really cancer talking to people. I prefer talking to teenagers or like really young people mentally, um, because they are less kind of defensive. They're less stuck in their uh, protecting my position in life. They're more open to confronting ideas that could potentially harm their status, but they're more aligned with the truth. Like they have a genuine desire to know what is better. They're not sitting there trying to prove that they are better. This makes a very big difference. Yeah, I think I've made my point. It kind of sucks that we live in this society. Like, it's really sad. It's actually really sad. And even teenagers are already like this because, influence from their parents or whatever. Uh, it really sucks. It really sucks. It really does. Uh, why do I think it sucks so much? I think if we weren't like this, we could actually have way more pleasant interactions with one another. Um, like, if you were to ask these groups of people, what is what would make interactions way more pleasant, and it's like, yeah, if these people just stopped being retarded and became like me, or if these people just stopped being retarded and became like me, then that is what they would say. But my answer is, if they both stopped being retarded and became like me. Irony is not lost on me on this one. Holy shit. Hypocrite, potentially. Uh, but genuinely, if people just let go of this kind of self-protective, this like insecure mindset, if they just kept aligned with uh, reality and what actually works instead of following social norms or denying reality. Actually, I think they're both forms of denying reality in a sense. They're both ways of avoiding confrontation with reality because one is like I will follow crowd and crowd will know the answer. And that is a way of avoiding confrontation with reality because you're letting the crowd find the answer. You're not looking for the answer. You're just copying it. It's like there's a math problem. Instead of confronting the math problem and trying to solve it, you're just letting someone else solve it, and then you're just copying his answer. You never confronted reality yourself. And same with stoners. They're directly avoiding confronting reality because they're having this very escapist thinking. It's like, so what if you're like this? You can be who you want. Yeah, you can be who you want, but maybe it's hurting you being that way. Consider that. Maybe you could be even more of who you want if you uh, actually focused on things that were effective. Or at least you gave yourself accountability or feedback on what is effective instead of avoiding it altogether. So, my answer is if people were more in touch with reality and more aware, I guess, we could have way more positive interactions where people would be allowed to exist without getting fucking dogpiled for no reason for not being parts of these collective groups. Any kind of group thinking is, I think, is like a plague on humanity. Um, we should get to know people as individuals, not as groups they belong to. Um, I don't know. I just feel like that's also kind of fun. Just like once you start seeing it that people uh seeing it that way, it's just becomes way more fun and interesting to get to know people in general. That is why when you're like younger, meeting people was interesting, and when you get older, it's no longer interesting because before it was more about just getting to meet people and just seeing how they are. And later it's all about do they align? What group are they in? Do they check all my boxes? Do they validate me as a person? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's so autistic. I don't know. Okay, point is made. I think I've exhausted the idea.